So welcome everyone to the second half of our evening, where we explore fundamental Buddhist topics. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you might want to consider joining us on our Zoom class, either now or some other time. The details are all on the Colchester Buddhist Centre website. So in the last couple of weeks, we've been exploring Buddhist ethics. And so for the sake of those of you who were not here in the last 2 weeks, and in any case, repetition is helpful to everyone, I just thought I'd quickly recap on what we have covered so far. So Buddhist ethics are set out as 5 guidelines or trainings that we call precepts. These precepts, these guidelines, it's important to know, are not really any kind of rules. In fact, it's impossible to be ethical by relying on rules. For Buddhists, each ethical decision calls for careful reflection in terms of what is my motivation here? What are the potential consequences of the action that I'm about to undertake? And most fundamentally, will this cause harm? And in our reflections about right action, we are developing a skill, I might even say an art form, learning gradually to make the best ethical decisions. Hence, Buddhist ethical decisions and actions are said to be either skillful or unskillful, rather than good or bad, or right or wrong. So far then, in the last 2 weeks, we've looked at the guidelines of harmlessness and generosity. So tonight's ethical guideline, the third precept, is expressed as, I undertake to abstain from sexual misconduct. So this is the behavior that we're moving away from. And in its positive form, with stillness, simplicity, and contentment, I purify my body. So these are the behaviors we are moving towards. This precept really is about moving away from inappropriate desire and towards stillness in our wants. Buddhism doesn't have a downer on sex unless our sexual behavior harms others or ourselves. So traditionally, sexual misconduct covers abduction, adultery, and rape. But quite clearly, sexual misconduct has many subtler forms, such as any kind of manipulation or coercion to get what we want, seeking sexual excitement that causes harm, and treating other people as objects to gratify our wants. But I suggest that the scope of this precept is much wider yet. When I began, I said that this guideline is about inappropriate desire. But clearly, not all desire is inappropriate. We have healthy desires for food, for shelter, for security, for friendship, for sex, for fulfillment, and so on. But inappropriate desire is what Buddhism calls craving. And this craving is an unhealthy or neurotic desire that expects the object of our desire to deliver what it really can't deliver. i.e. ultimate happiness and contentment. Of course, when we get what we want, we will be happy. Often that's for a short while, because no external object, whether a thing or a person, can make us fundamentally happy. If we expect that, we will be disappointed again and again. So if this precept, as I suggest, is about inappropriate desire or craving in a much sort of wider sense, why did the Buddha choose sexual misconduct as the subject or the example of this precept? Well, presumably because the sex drive is it's strong. It's perhaps the strongest drive that we have. But if we go along with, my suggestion that this precept is more to do in its negative form with craving, that clearly suggests that sex may not be the main issue for us. We may crave other things, and very likely we do. And I venture to suggest that overconsumption may be an issue for us to reflect on. There really is nothing natural about wanting to consume more and more. From my reading around overconsumption, I've come to understand that there is a sizable number of people in the West, I'm talking now, who actually have everything that they could possibly want. They can afford to have everything that they could possibly want. So what's happened to their craving? Well, they've turned their attention to experiences. Yeah? So some people, perhaps that's us, are prepared to pay large sums of money for new exciting experiences, from whitewater rafting to jumping out of aeroplanes to trekking in the Himalayas. And we have now come to a point where almost everything is disposable, and we are well on our way to make our planet uninhabitable. But more personally for us, we now are psychologically much more anxious and much more stressed than the generations before us, the generations who had very little in terms of material goods. So the positive form of this precept then suggests that we need to seek a way out of that anxiety, that stress, by cultivating stillness, simplicity, and contentment. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, after I've stopped talking, we'll have an opportunity to go into our breakout groups to explore just how we might do that. But I think to start with, we just really need to stop. We need to create a pause. And isn't it interesting that here we are in an involuntary pause, kind of lucky for us. I'm not at all dismissing the real pain and suffering and distress that some people are experiencing during this time of lockdown. But perhaps we are not in that category of experiencing that distress. So for us, this can be an opportunity, the opportunity to pause, to seek calm through meditation, to simplify our life. So I urge you strongly not to fill your time with endless online activity. Well, that's funny coming from me as I'm talking to you on Zoom or on YouTube. But even then, I do urge you not to fill your time with online activity, but rather to find time to enjoy nature. If you locked in with other people, to enjoy their company, to do some reflection, and particularly to do nothing at all. So now we have an opportunity to go into breakout rooms to discuss two particular questions that I have come up with. So both questions are relate to this time, this very strange time that we're living through. So the first question is, how would you bring more stillness into your life? Or it could be simplicity or contentment. And the second question is, what are you desiring at this time? Are these desires healthy, or are they unhealthy, neurotic desires?